In the previous spoiler, it was mentioned that Luo Feng had entered a universe secret realm to obtain the third metal plate, even encountering universe pirates along the way. After eliminating the pirates, he chose to retract his spaceship and travel with his physical body to minimize spatial fluctuations, avoiding the risk of alerting any hidden terrifying beings. Before long, he finally arrived at the most dangerous region within the secret realm, the Ice Prison Planet Zone. Guided by the powerful summons emanating from the metal plate, Luo Feng instantly locked onto the target planet among the hundreds of ice prison planets. To obtain the metal plate, he had to face the greatest obstacle, the Dooku, a type of special lifeform birthed by the original universe and 100 times stronger than humans of the same level. Because their life gene level was 100 times higher than that of humans, their base strength alone made a King Immortal level Dooku capable of reaching a limit of 10 million times the base strength power of a world master even without any amplification secret technique. This also meant that once such a lifeform reached the peak King Immortal level, it was equivalent to an invincible King Immortal level existence like King Jinyan. In comparison, the limit of a human peak King Immortal was only around 100,000 times the base strength power of a world master. Moreover, these beings were born in extreme cold, and the frigid energy contained within their attacks could freeze an enemy's body or even their soul outright. Their primary combat system could be easily identified by the color of their body surface. Because of this, Luo Feng did not dare act recklessly. He refrained from charging directly into the locked-on planet and instead used a detector to conceal his presence, quietly observing from 10,000 kilometers away as he devised a strategy. Although Luo Feng's strength already surpassed that of a typical Limit King Immortal, and his Masha clan clone had mastered the teleportation divine ability, making him unafraid even of Immortal-level Dooku, both intense combat and the spatial fluctuations caused by teleportation carried an extremely high risk, where any such disturbance might alert the strongest existence among the Dooku clan. That would be a universe overlord level being, comparable to Venerable Guai and Venerable Undying, or possibly even on par with the human race's strongest universe overlord, Tianshi Palace Master. In front of such an existence, Luo Feng would have zero chance of escape. Thus, to proceed safely, Luo Feng decided to have King Tianjin dispatch a Marquis Immortal level soul slave to scout the path for him. As a soul master, King Tianjin naturally commanded numerous Immortal Army Lord level and Marquis Immortal level soul slaves. Even if an accident were to occur during the reconnaissance, losing a single Marquis Immortal soul slave meant nothing to Luo Feng. This clearly shows just how ruthless the law of the strong ruling the universe truly is. Yet for these beings who had been enslaved for countless years, forced to remain idle inside a world ring, such dangerous missions were instead a rare form of entertainment for them. Of course, Luo Feng wasn't willing to sacrifice a soul slave so casually. Thus, when assigning the mission, he not only handed over a complete set of detection equipment, but also confirmed repeatedly that the soul slave fully understood his instructions before allowing him to depart. Although the Marquis Immortal level soul slave found Luo Feng's orders somewhat puzzling, where he was forbidden from attacking even if he encountered a weaker Dooku, and he had to rely entirely on a small detector to hide himself throughout the mission, he still voiced no objections. After all, as a soul slave of a soul slave, he was linked by the chain effect of soul control and naturally incapable of any form of resistance. The Marquis Immortal soul slave first traveled through the dark universe with his physical body, arriving tens of millions of kilometers outside the target planet before carefully slipping in. Meanwhile, through the microdetector, Luo Feng could see everything the soul slave scanned in real time. It should be noted that with Luo Feng's status as a core member of the Virtual Universe Company, especially his current standing, an unregistered Virtual Universe sensor was easy to acquire, allowing the soul slave to stay perfectly synced with him. Since Luo Feng didn't arrive personally and could rely only on the distance summoning resonance, he couldn't determine the metal plate's precise location. The Marquis Immortal soul slave could only choose a passage at random and begin his reconnaissance. After flying for quite a long time, he finally reached the end of the passage, where a palace appeared before him. The aura emanating from deep within the structure made his heart tremble, and this clearly indicates that a formidable existence resided inside. Not daring to act rashly, he immediately sought further instructions from Luo Feng. To avoid alarming the unknown powerhouse within the palace, Luo Feng ordered him to first scan all areas outside the palace using a large detector. Yet after a thorough sweep, there was no result, and this implies that the metal plate was obviously inside the palace. With no other choice, Luo Feng instructed the soul slave to turn off the large detector and keep only the microdetector active before slipping quietly into the palace. However, Luo Feng had never expected that the palace had long since been fully refined by the powerful being inside. Any living creature that entered would be sensed immediately. Thus, even though the soul slave was concealed within the microdetector's cloaking field, the moment he stepped across the threshold, his presence was instantly exposed, which leaving him with nowhere to hide. Luo Feng received everything in real time through the virtual universe. The moment he heard the furious roar of the palace's powerful inhabitant, he made a snap decision by ordering the soul slave to activate the large detector immediately and then flee. Unfortunately, the difference in strength was far too great. With just a casual soul attack, the palace's powerhouse froze and shattered the soul slave's soul entirely, turning him into an ice sculpture on the spot. This made it clear that once one becomes a soul slave, life and death are no longer in their own hands. In fact, as long as one has not yet reached the universe master level, or barring an extraordinary stroke of fate, there is still a chance of resurrection through time-space reversal after being killed even for a slave. However, the soul imprint and the spiritual bond linking the slave to their master do not disappear after revival. Thus, almost no powerful figure is willing to pay any price to resurrect a slave, especially one that was already enslaved by an enemy force. This is precisely why, before Luo Feng went to the extraterritorial battlefield, Primal Chaos City leader warned him repeatedly, in an emergency where rescue cannot come in time, he must self-destruct rather than be seized and enslaved. Only by doing so would Luo Feng have any chance of being revived through time-space reversal in the future. Just as Luo Feng expected, Sitting Mountain Guest's trial left absolutely no room for clever loopholes. After all, Sitting Mountain Guest knew all of his trump cards inside and out. If Luo Feng could pass the trial easily without facing true danger, how could he be pushed to grow into the powerful being that Sitting Mountain Guest hoped for, where at least someone capable of stepping into the God King realm? Based on the data fed back by the large detector, Luo Feng had fully locked onto the exact location of the metal plate. However, the greatest obstacle was that where someone had to enter that palace and survive without being expelled or killed in order to actually obtain the metal plate. Fortunately, when Luo Feng first arrived at the ice prison planet zone, he saw several Dooku wandering between the planets, frolicking, flying, and shuttling into the dark universe. The distances between each ice prison planet were vast. Without entering the dark universe at light speed, flying through the original universe would take half a month just to reach the next planet. This was precisely why the spatial disturbances caused by the Marquis Immortal Soul Slave while traversing the dark universe earlier had not alerted the Dooku clan's powerful members. With Luo Feng's current eyesight, sensory abilities, and memory, he naturally had no difficulty memorizing the life aura of the Dooku clan members. He immediately chose to deploy his Masha clan clone and used its innate secret technique to perfectly replicate the appearance and aura of one of the Dooku, even imitating the voice with absolute precision. Once the transformation was complete, the Masha clone became indistinguishable from a true Dooku. Luo Feng, now disguised as one of them, slipped into the dark universe and quietly made his way toward the target planet. As soon as Luo Feng set foot on the target planet, he was warmly greeted by the Dooku clan companion whose identity he had borrowed. Excitedly, the companion recounted amusing stories of alien who had been frozen into ice sculpture after intruding, and then led him toward the location of the powerful figure in the palace. Although the Masha clan clone's disguise was nearly perfect and extremely difficult to detect for anyone at the level of Universe Venerable or below, it was ultimately impossible to replicate personality and mannerisms flawlessly. Fortunately, the Dooku race could not reproduce and could only be born from the original universe itself. Their numbers were extremely scarce. Unlike other races, they had no instinctive reverence of the weak toward the strong, nor any strict hierarchical suppression. Instead, they shared a natural affinity akin to juniors being close to their seniors. Thus, although the palace powerhouse immediately sensed that the junior before her behaved slightly differently than usual, she grew no suspicious. She simply assumed the youngster was in a poor mood and treated Luo Feng with warmth and kindness, which completely unlike the vicious brutality she had displayed when killing Luo Feng's soul slave earlier. Not only that, she casually allowed Luo Feng to wander freely inside one of the palace's treasure vaults. When she saw Luo Feng take the metal plate, she did nothing to stop him. To her, it was merely a rare trinket given to a junior to help lift his spirits. In fact, though the Dooku had no gender, they came in two types, Violet Dooku and Cyan Dooku, with temperaments roughly corresponding to human females and males respectively. Cyan Dooku often sought Violet Dooku as companions, though the violet ones were even rarer, so rejection was common. Thus, the palace powerhouse naturally interpreted Luo Feng's slightly odd behavior as emotional sulking and a desire for distraction. Of course, this indulgence had limits. Although the metal plate was rare, it was nearly useless, so taking it caused no harm. But if Luo Feng grew greedy and attempted to take the precious materials unique to the ice prison planets, he would instantly expose himself and be killed on the spot. After all, the entire palace had long been fully refined by that powerhouse, and none of Luo Feng's actions could escape her perception. After obtaining the third metal plate, Luo Feng did not allow excitement to cloud his judgment. He maintained a steady pace and slowly walked toward the palace exit, avoiding any abrupt or suspicious movements. What he did not know was that at this very moment, the palace powerhouse was inside a virtual world, drinking and chatting with several other Dooku clan members. During their casual conversation, she inadvertently learned that the Dooku individual Luo Feng had impersonated had been seen appearing on different planets at the same time. Coupled with the drastic differences between his earlier and later behavior, the powerhouse's suspicion ignited instantly. She swept the palace with her divine power and, in a single moment, completely saw through Luo Feng's disguised identity. Just as Luo Feng was about to take off from the ice prison planet, the palace powerhouse instantly teleported in front of him, blocking his path and firing an attack meant to kill him on the spot. His body was completely pierced through by the terrifying energy. By sheer luck, that powerhouse happened to be a Violet Dooku, one whose cultivation centered on soul-based attacks, while the Masha clan clone had no soul at all. The attack was entirely ineffective, allowing Luo Feng to teleport away unhindered. However, even the Masha clan clone, which favored by the original law of space, it was far from invincible in the realm of teleportation. In fact, Luo Feng's comprehension of the original law of space was only equivalent to the level of the 18th floor of the Heavenly Bridge, which meant each teleportation spanned only about 1 light-year. Even so, for a king immortal who has mastered teleportation, as long as they have not fully comprehended the original law of space, trying to lock onto a target and track their teleportation from all directions is hundreds of times more difficult than simply merging with spatial fluctuations and teleporting away. This is exactly why, whenever a king immortal prepares for a life-or-death battle, the very first thing they do is deploy a spatial lockdown, because if the opponent manages to teleport away, there is absolutely no chance of pursuit. But in the ice prison planet zone, teleportation itself was taboo, because only outsiders would teleport to flee. This was a shared understanding among all Dooku clan powerhouses at king immortal level and above. Therefore, although the palace powerhouse could not catch Luo Feng, the two true strongest members of the Dooku clan certainly could. They were universe overlords who had fully mastered the original law of space. The Cyan Dooku Venerable immediately teleported to pursue him. Any being who can be called a peerless genius possesses an exceptionally sharp mind, and Luo Feng was no exception. Before taking action, he had already simulated countless unexpected scenarios and prepared backup plans. Thus, from the instant his disguise was exposed, he began teleporting again and again without hesitation. During one rapid directional shift, within a millisecond of adjusting his posture, he quietly dropped a world ring disguised as an ordinary rock into a mountain range along his escape route. Meanwhile, the Masha clan clone continued teleporting, preventing the Cyan Dooku Venerable from locking onto him right away. After all, each time the Cyan Dooku Venerable attempted to pursue, he first had to pinpoint Luo Feng's position before he could teleport over. After several rounds of this chase, the Cyan Venerable completely lost his patience. He directly burned less than 1% of his divine body, instantly disturbing the spatial fluctuations within a radius of 10 light-years. With space thrown into violent turbulence, the Masha clan clone could no longer teleport and was forced to halt. Enraged at being toyed with by Amir Jr., the Cyan Dooku Venerable struck out once, erasing Luo Feng's Masha clan clone entirely. Even so, Luo Feng remained perfectly calm, without the slightest trace of panic. The destruction of the Masha clone meant nothing to him, because the world ring he had left behind in the mountains already concealed a hidden soul slave. While the Cyan Dooku Venerable was fully consumed with chasing the Masha clone, that slave swiftly traversed the dark universe and delivered the world ring to Luo Feng's human body, which had been hiding thousands of light-years away. But Luo Feng never expected that the other terrifying existence within the ice prison planet zone, the Violet Dooku Venerable, would suddenly appear behind him. After capturing Luo Feng, the Violet Dooku Venerable did not become angry. Instead, she allowed Luo Feng to buy his life by offering treasures that satisfied her. Yet it soon sensed that the Cyan Dooku Venerable had burned his divine body while chasing the Masha clone, which meant he was utterly furious and would never let Luo Feng go. Thus, the Violet Dooku Venerable ultimately ordered the palace powerhouse to throw Luo Feng into a heavy treasure under the Cyan Dooku Venerable's control, the ice prison, to be imprisoned regardless of life or death. Of course, as long as Luo Feng wished, no matter how strong the pull of the ice prison, it could not easily swallow him. After all, His human body was still equipped with the Sure Wu wings. Even if only a partial piece, it still counted as an Arcana-grade weapon, and thanks to the grade difference, Luo Feng could easily break free from the ice prison's pull. Yet he chose not to. He knew that, although he did not fear the palace powerhouse, in front of two universe overlords he was completely powerless and could do nothing but submit to captivity. And that was precisely the true intent of the sitting mountain guest, a deliberately set trial. In fact, Luo Feng's plan was nearly flawless. Even beings at the level of universe overlords would hardly have detected anything amiss, and he could have escaped smoothly. After all, without prior knowledge, who would ever imagine that Luo Feng could be so cunning, having laid down so many contingencies in advance? Luo Feng's eventual predicament was entirely the result of sitting mountain guest's deliberate arrangement. When designing the trial, sitting mountain guest specifically instructed the Dooku Venerables to place the metal plate on a planet other than their own, giving Luo Feng the chance to steal it, while also subtly hinting that the trial participant might successfully take the plate without their knowledge. As a universe overlord, who could tolerate a junior taking objects within their own territory without being aware of it? Driven by curiosity, the Violet Dooku Venerable left a spiritual mark on the metal plate. The moment it realized that the Cyan Dooku Venerable had failed to track the thief, it immediately followed the mark, leaving Luo Feng with no means of escape. It was evident that everything had been carefully guided by sitting mountain guest to steer the trial in the desired direction. So, what exactly was sitting mountain guest's true intention? Could Luo Feng complete the trial and escape the ice prison safely? Stay tuned for the next spoiler where I will reveal it all. Well, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching this video. Wish you a wonderful day.